All right, people. Hold on to your vocabulary vaginas. Grease them up. Strap on the Jimmy hat on your parathentical penises. Your linguistic libido is about to get rhetorically raped. Right in its adjectival anus. This is verbal sex with AndrewX. People have been asking me why I named it verbal sex, because I don't really talk about sex a lot, or at least I haven't yet.
No.
And, well, it's because, like, listening to this podcast is a lot like sex with AndrewX. Angry, sputtering, awkward, low quality, and it's probably over early due to technical difficulties.
Doesn't happen very often.
No. We're coming to you not so live from the new studio. And it's sounding pretty good so far. Don't have to use the stupid PS3 microphone anymore. The PS3 headset. How you doing? I got the first podcast with the guest. We got Geoff N from various podcasts from the
Pinecone Comics Club.
Pinecone Comics Club, and a new one that started.
The Geoff and Didi Podcast.
Yes, the Geoff and Didi Podcast pilot episode caught the other day.
Yeah, it's pretty magical.
Yeah, it was pretty magical.
Well, it's a thrill to be here, AndrewX. I listened to your first podcast, and I said, well, I've got to. I called my publicist and said, get me on that show, because it's obviously...
Yeah, your publicist was a nice guy.
Yeah. No, he's a good guy.
He's really good with ones and zeros.
Right.
He sends them over the airwaves pretty well.
Yeah, beautiful thing. Beautiful day. Spring is here. It's good to be here. You mentioned sex, and I thought to myself, this is a super way off, goofy topic, but man, I don't know at what point I started noticing this, but I'm planting flowers in my garden and everything.
Uh-huh.
And plants are essentially just gigantic sex organs.
Right.
Like, that's what they do. Like, they're just
flowers.
Yeah, reproductive things that just that's
they smell nice to attract stuff.
Yeah,
and that has stuff attached to it that it needs to reproduce or whatever.
They're just jizzing all over each other and just out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they eat, but in a manner of speaking. But it's kind of like phallic things, flourishing in your front yard.
Yeah, it's kind of like if people. Women reproduce through their mouths, and then you just went jacking off through the streets, spraying it everywhere, and they're just like, oh, like with their mouths up like baby birds.
Yeah.
And just getting random women pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what it's like.
It's like what the plant world's like.
It is. It's just a big fuck fest going on. God bless them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love plants. Oh, yeah.
So I went on a hot date yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
True story. And it was, it ended up being a bad experience.
Oh, yeah.
It ended up being a bad experience.
As oftentimes it is.
Oh, man. So, young lady, I don't know why, but when the thing was over, after I spent $100 fucking on a dinner, we're walking out, and we kiss. And she did the thing where she thought she was being hot and sexy, and she, bit the shit out of my lip.
Oh, yeah.
Like, wait till he gets a load of this. Like, he's gonna, he's gonna love this. And really, it just fucking hurt. And I was really afraid that it was gonna leave a mark, because it really felt, powerful. And then I'm trying not to embarrass her, but at the same time, I really wanted to stop and not do that. And then she, kind of latched onto my neck. And I don't, tried to leave a mark, but I don't think she did.
No, I don't see one.
No. It was uncool though, and so that led to I don't know. We split at the parking lot, and then she sent me a text and gave me I don't know. Then we had an awkward phone call after that. Like, what happened? What went wrong?
Yeah. Is that really an appropriate conversation after one date?
I know.
What went wrong?
Where did we go wrong? Yeah. I don't know. It was.
I assume that was initiated by her. I don't imagine you really endeavoring to make that kind of.
No. The conversation. No, hell no. No. She sent me a text. She said, "I'm sorry that I'm overweight." I couldn't handle it, man.
Yeah, I laugh, but that's, you know, issues that some girls got to deal with, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, she sucked, though. I mean, yeah, it wasn't just whatever. I mean, she was shitty. She did a couple, over the short time we went out to dinner and everything, she did a couple shitty things, and you know, she was making fun of the waitress, like the waitress was an airhead or something, and it was just very uncool, and it didn't. And I thought to myself, what the fuck makes you so special? I won't go into details, but it's like, I asked her questions about her life, and she didn't have it going on, like, strong. Like, she wasn't like, on the fast track or something.
Yeah.
So.
No, I know how you feel. But not, not like I'm on the fast track either, but you know.
Well, I know your situation. I know my situation. We're a lot closer to the fast track than the young lady was. Yeah.
But, like, yeah, I mean, it's okay to be, there's no problem with being an overweight girl. I mean, most girls that are way too hung up on it. Like, it doesn't bother me at all.
No.
You just can't be that and, like, really bitter about it.
Yeah. No, that wasn't my complaint about this chick, man.
Yeah,
It was, whatever. That
was what she assumed your complaint was.
Yeah, and it was like, no, and what do you do? I mean, I don't know. So I told her, no. Listen, don't beat yourself up, but just know we're not compatible, and kind of thing, or something like that. But really, it was like, there was a few times during dinner where I thought, man, I got to get the hell out of here. It wasn't awesome. Not an awesome situation.
And it's all in your mind, though. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
It's all in your mind. That date that's about to go south, it's not going south because you're fat.
No.
It's going south because you're taking it there. You're trying too hard, or you're,
It's a lonely world out there, man. It's good to have you got yourself a good woman and a good situation going on.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing, man. Well, we're the same age, and man, it's we're not young people anymore.
No,
right? I mean,
that's why I'm getting started doing stuff that I should have been doing since I was 22.
Right,
like this podcast.
Yeah, no, I know. No, it is having that courage to just like, wait a minute, it's stuff that you didn't do for one reason or the other. It's kind of like, man, we're it's not unreasonable to believe that our lives are half over.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
chronologically. Conceivably it could be, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it could be more than half over. We don't know, but I mean...
Yeah, I mean, we'd be 70.
Yeah, I mean, shit. So, and of course, you're not going to be rocking too hard when you're 68 or whatever. So, I mean, there's...
No, not unless you're as rich as William Shatner, and you can afford to have the fucking voodoo doctors come and do whatever the fuck they do to him.
That's true. Perpetually 52 or whatever.
Yeah.
But so you get out there and you do the thing. Live a little bit. I made this observation, and you tell me if this is just sexist nonsense, but I was at pizza restaurant the other day for lunch, and I looked over and I just saw this like just awe-inspiring, beautiful young girl, man. And I for all I know, she was 18 plus or minus, or high school age or whatever, and she's with this dude who looks just. On one hand, looks like the dude you'd expect her to be with. On the other hand, it looks like this little shrimpy D-bag, you know what I mean? Just some kid, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, I says, man, and this is, again, forgive me, but that girl, I mean, she was a solid 10. And I'm thinking to myself, that girl, man, is about the best, if, of course she's not an object, but in the sense that she is, that's the best thing a guy can have. Right there. That's like what every guy, rich and famous, poor and whatever, that's everyone's looking for that right there. Like that is like the height of accomplishments.
You mean like having a 10 that you can...
Yeah, like that's what you want. I mean, in so many cases, that's what people are striving for. You know what I mean? Like you have the, you
in a lot of cases, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of...
You don't have the nice house necessarily because you want the nice house. Or the car because you want the nice car. It's in many cases it's part of attracting that girl, right? Like that's like the ideal. That's the on our animalistic level. On our animalistic level.
Yeah, definitely. Your tendency to shower every day and stuff goes up way more when you're single.
Yes. No, exactly. It's like that's what you're shooting for right there. And here's this kid who's got that ideal that, I mean, every 50-year-old man would trade his, fortune for and everything else. You know what I mean? And he's just some kid, man. Like, and I was him, and you were him. You know what I mean? I had no idea that was like, you know, you almost spend the rest of your life trying to get.
And those kids will never know what they had.
Never know.
Not even when they're old, they'll be like, because they'll have had it so many times by then. It'll just be like.
I thought to myself, man, that's a cruel irony, you know.
I mean, I've noticed that a lot with like growing up in high school, like all the skater. That was the big thing then. Like the skater kids were all the douchebags. That's what the douchebags were, and all the like hot girls were all hanging off the skater kids, and the skater kids didn't give a shit about them. And it was the girls would carry the skateboards.
Yeah.
Not actually ride them, but
fucking A, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but then, you know, you meet those girls and they're like, I mean, you really want to, like, wake up and have that in your house every day, you know?
Right. And
because they live in a world where you know, there's guys like that, just like you said, you know, that's their goal in life, is to have someone like them. And so they just have guys throwing at them constantly, you know, offering them all this shit. They never have to work for anything, but consequently.
Yes.
I mean, not, you know, they don't have to. They're every bit as capable as a man. I would like to mention that distinction. Don't want to get any mad tweets or anything, but yeah, I mean, they have the option not to, because they have all these people just throwing stuff at them. And, you know, they grow up like that, and it's, you know, at the end of it, they're so entitled. And
well, you can't know otherwise. I mean, you can only experience your own experience, and that's what that experience comes from. Is it's funny like that, man. I mean, you know, I'm a sober person, 12-step person for a long time, and one thing, my observation, right, is that you know, just the young pretty girls don't get sober. Like the ones that need to get sober and have drinking problems or whatever, they don't get sober because there's always someone to rescue them. You know, like they can. It takes them a lot longer to figure out they have a problem than a non, you know, pretty young girl. So it's like they end up having to be more or less kind of the washed out on the far side of the hill of youth and beauty before they're in many cases before they're able to get sober.
Oh yeah.
Where when I was a you know, drunk 21-year-old, man, nobody was going to pay my bills or tell me it's going to be okay, or you know what I mean.
Right.
Like nobody was picking me up, you know, and so as a result, it was I hit bottom sooner or whatever. Where the good looking gals, there's always some, you know, some guy there looking to rescue her, you know, and take care of her and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and in that sense, it works out. You know, I mean, I think it worked out in my favor in that sense.
Yeah. No, because in the end, you're a better person.
Yeah. Well, and I got to where I got to sooner. I didn't have to suffer as long as some of those people do.
Yeah, it's definitely best to get that. I mean, and you know, so many people focus on giving their kids such an easy life, or trying to give it, you know, better than they had, which is great. You know, I mean, that's definitely. I mean, you're supposed to give your kids a good life, but then, you know, at a certain level, you've got to grow up with some sort of strife too, and
yeah,
that can be real hard to do when you're, you know, living in a like a suburban sort of rich neighborhood, or going to a high school full of white kids, you know, and you got a Subway in your school.
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, I was, you know, spoiled is not necessarily a matter of material things and wealth, you know.
Right, yeah, it's exposure to certain, you know, elements of the world, of the life, or whatever.
Because I didn't, you know, I mean, of course, I mean, every last one of us is spoiled rotten compared to somebody. I mean, we're all in the first world and all that, you know. But, you know, I mean, I grew up and my folks had, you know, in our little suburban neighborhood, my folks were probably among the more well-to-do, but I never knew it. I thought we were the poor kids on the block, you know, and I really believe that because I didn't get everything I asked for when I asked for it, like my neighbors did, you know. Like I was the last, like literally the Christmas that every kid on the block got a Nintendo, an NES. I got an Atari 2600.
Yeah.
You know, literally, and you know, I didn't have the name brand basketball shoes that were all the rage in 1988 or whatever. But you know, and of course, you know, I'm spoiled compared to some Afghani who's eating grass soup. Of course, I'm spoiled rotten. But on the other hand, it was, you know, you can be the you know, the welfare kid of the single mom and be spoiled if mom gives you what you want when you want it, you know. Mm-hmm. And you know, so I think it's not just material or that kind of thing. I think it's a behavior and attitude. You feel me?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, your behavior definitely, you know, sends out a sort of a story of how you've grown up.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah,
and like,
yeah,
you know, by the end of it, you end up telling the story of just, you know, a really like not very interesting story. You know, it's just who you are. You know what I mean? Like if you go down to like I don't know, like just some bar downtown on like a Friday or Saturday night.
Yeah,
and just see all the guys with the tribal tattoos,
right?
You know, all mingling with like the girls that are way too dolled up.
Well, yeah,
and like, you know, by certain society standards, way too old to be doing that too.
Right. Oh,
you
yeah.
know, and
oh yeah, I know. With sequins, like sequins is a thing now, man. Like
sequins and glitter and
glitter, right? Yeah.
Glitter on the chest and stuff. Yeah,
shiny people,
and it's just a sick show. Like all these people, you know, and just listening to them talk, you can tell that all they've gone through in their life is just like, you know, nothing really. It's just like they've gone through school.
Yeah,
they're all from like, you know, and I'm generalizing, obviously.
No, of course. Well, I think maybe more of what that is honestly intelligence. You know, I think there's people with low levels of intelligence that they might have had very similar experiences to anybody else or whatever, but their ability to process it is less. You know, so they're
for sure.
What they gleaned from those experiences was little or nothing.
Yeah,
I think, you know, that's
well, and it, you know that, and it goes back to like, you know, when you're, you know, you're talking about, you know, people, you know, we live comparatively easy lives. Any of us live comparatively easy lives to someone in Afghanistan, but I mean, it's all relative. You know, I mean, like especially when you're a kid, you know, and you're going through, you know, and everything is absolutely brand new, and you've got. You know, if you know you got some traumatic shit that happens, then if your life is just like super easy, you know, and then all of a sudden like some Afghani style shit happens to you, like you go from living in Beverly Hills to like all of a sudden like a suicide bomber blows up, you know, outside the.
That was a great '80s movie, by the way.
Yeah, Beverly Hills Bomber.
Beverly Hills Bomber 3.
Yeah, yeah, but you know, but I think that you know. You know, that's going to be obviously just traumatic. That's going to be beyond just going through some strife in your childhood. That's going to be just like,
right? No, well, I mean, shit, man. I mean, my father's father, my grandpa, he grew up on a farm in Rochester, Washington. I guess, is that a place? I think it's a place.
I think it is. Yeah.
He grew up on a farm. The way I understand it, and he was one of 9 or something like that. He was the baby of the bunch. But you know, I've talked to him, and it's. The day started with getting the eggs out of the chicken coop for breakfast. You know what I mean? And
sure.
they lived off the farm. They weren't professional farmers. They just had a farm to feed themselves because they, you know, and then Dad went to, my great-great-grandfather went to the sawmill or the whatever and cut down trees, you know.
Gotcha.
But, see, we don't do anything like that anymore. I mean, for the most part. I mean, I get up, I sit in an office chair all day long. And even before that, I mean, I've got kind of a cush job now, but before that, you know, like delivering pizzas, that's not a hard job, you know? Like,
yeah.
I mean, none of that is like, you know, I mean, if I wasn't so chubby, I wouldn't break a sweat doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. So, like, in that sense, I mean, we have to do so little to sustain ourselves.
And we don't have to anymore. And the thing is that we can't. Like, not everybody can go and live off the land. If everybody that exists right now went and tried to, you know, have their own farm and do that, we wouldn't be able to because there would be nobody to build the shit that, you know, makes the farm go because they'd all be working on their own farm.
Yeah.
Trying to feed themselves. And
right. Yeah, you're talking about take it back to the Industrial Revolution or thereabouts, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So we've got all these, you know, but we've got ass tons of people everywhere, and they've all got that energy still. You know, they all needed to have done something their whole life, and now their brains are evolving, not doing that. They're doing, like, they're sitting in school,
Yes, and they're doing intangible things like what we're doing right now,
right? Right,
or
exactly.
social media or whatever. I mean, it's like they're toiling on things that are, near fruitless and, they don't exist in the real world, in a lot of cases.
Yeah, they don't. I mean, they can produce real benefits.
Sure, definitely,
in the real world,
without a doubt. But they're not making steel girders or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right. Very few of them are. Yeah.
Yeah.
We get the Chinese to do that for us. They've got enough people they can afford to lose them in the steel vats.
Fallen steel vats. I don't. Man, that's my. I don't know how to solve it or anything, but I have a suspicion that something that's very wrong with the United States economy is that we don't manufacture stuff anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not an economist, but it seems to me that we can't all be, IT people and massage therapists and nurses.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, we can't just sell each other shit. We have to.
Yeah, the people that patronize your business have to be able to buy them stuff.
Yeah, they have to get the money somewhere, and it occurs to me that we don't build much anymore or whatever. I mean, I don't know anyone who goes to work at the mill.
No, we're a service-based economy now.
Yeah. Which is not sustainable, man. You can't just provide services.
No, I don't think so. I mean, it doesn't seem like to me. I'm no economist, but
exactly. Well, we can't just mow each other's lawns for a living,
right? Yeah, there's only a few guys in a city that can do that, and then they've got that job. And now, I mean,
now you have to have a bunch of people with lawns to make it work,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
But those people with lawns have to do something to keep those lawns,
right? Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the nature of an economy and the division of labor. But like I worked for a little shy of a year. It was an interesting social experiment. I worked in Bremerton. Right, at a bank in Bremerton, and everybody that I dealt with, almost literally everybody worked at the Bremerton shipyard.
Okay,
and when I met people that didn't work at the shipyard, it was because they were retired from the shipyard, or in a couple cases they were like a school teacher or something. And the only reason they're school teachers there is because they are teaching the kids of the people who work at the shipyard. So it's like that was the economy, and everybody did it or something to support it. Well, I don't know what I'm going with that, other than that was an interesting. Yeah,
it's an interesting kind of environment you would think to try and exist in. I mean, you've got to either it would take a very specific kind of person, really.
It was crazy. I mean,
not to like stereotype Navy.
Right.
The Navy people or anything, but I mean, at least, especially in a particular office, in any kind of office, not just the Navy, like there's a certain sort of culture that goes on.
Yeah.
And you've got to, I don't want to say agree, but you've got to be able to at least coexist with it.
Yeah.
And it takes a certain kind of person. So you've got like an entire city, Bremerton, that's, based around this naval base, and everyone works on the naval base. And, there's obviously variation. So you get, but yeah, it would be kind of an interesting. Did you notice, like, you work in a bank now too, right?
Yeah.
So, do you notice any difference?
Well, I'm in Tacoma now, and the huge difference is that the people I meet all have different jobs.
Yeah.
Where they all work for the shipyard.
But I mean, as sort of the in more of like a the kind of people that came in there, were they like similar kinds of people? I mean, was it like?
Yeah, well, no, yeah, because they all had the same culture. In that, out in Bremerton, they had the same culture for the most part, and that was, there was a little bit of the us against them vibe. Them being the I guess the bosses who represent the federal government. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was like it was definitely a labor and management division, you know what I mean, in kind of the old sense.
But that's interesting. So they had you felt a lot of like.
Well, they were all
like they were dissentive in their jobs, or
because they. I mean, in a sense, I would argue that they're spoiled because they're as employees of the federal government, they are getting paid. the entity that manages them is too weighted with bureaucracy to do an effective job. I mean, so
right.
So you have that, like when you pass a crew of guys working on the road, and there's like one dude in a ditch, like, and he doesn't seem to be working very hard. And then there's 5 people standing around him, and one guy is the boss, and one guy's the safety inspector guy, and one, you know what I mean,
right?
And these guys are just leaning against the counter for money that is very generous, I think. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
And there was a lot of that. I mean, these people, I don't know what they did, but they kind of came in all different shapes and sizes. You know what I mean? So they weren't just like a bunch of young, able-bodied men who were obviously, toiling away. You know what I mean? And there was like plenty of them had variations of, work-related disabilities and that kind of thing. But it was just like it was like the shipyard was the fruit tree, and everybody just went and plucked stuff off it every day.
Oh, right, yeah.
It felt like to me, because that's
interesting.
They're sandblasting and painting and repainting, battleships that have to get painted, I guess, because they're, otherwise they don't work, and they're not, you know what I mean? They're not being. And it's not a case of the private market deciding how much it should cost to sandblast a ship. It is, someone who was elected by someone else, who was appointed by someone else, delegating, okay, we got this much money, how much should go to this, that, and the other thing. It wasn't, it wasn't, if you follow me, it wasn't necessarily reality-based. I mean, there was this, like, kind of saggy middle-aged women who you wouldn't peg for industrial workers. You know what I mean? But they were making $80,000 a year, and they couldn't have been working that hard because I'll be damned, they were.
You know what I think one of the common threads is to live in a place like Bremerton like that and to work at a shipyard and just like exist there among that would be to like just be so willing to settle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just
so true.
Like because I mean that I can imagine that being an attractive life to maybe 2% of the population.
Yeah.
But in the rest of I can imagine that most people there want to live there.
Mm-mm. No,
and they're probably turning themselves into whoever they are just because like they can't think of anything else to do or whatever for some reason, or they feel like something else they'd want to do is out of reach or
that. Well,
I don't know, but
it's so true, man. I mean, it's ironically like if you told, because I met kids who were someone's 28 and they've been there for 10 years, right?
Right,
and you meet this person. And it's like someone went to Bremerton High School and then got a job at the shipyard, and this kid, man, is making $80,000 a year, and he's got money in the bank despite his best efforts to spend it all. Like just someone who's got it kind of dicked, and he's a third of the way into a very comfortable retirement. And that's it's the kind of money and benefits and retirement and stuff that I think we all want, but not the work for sure, and not the satisfaction of life or whatever. And it's the kind of thing. If you told me when I was 18, hey, you should get a job at the shipyard, it's really good money and good blah blah, I would have just laughed in your face, man. I mean, I would have, hell, a lot. When I was a lot older than 18, I would have done that. I would have said, no, I'm bound for great things. I'm not going to just go do that,
Yeah. And then...
Well, and then at some point you're kind of like, well, what am I doing that's so important that I couldn't be just the comfort of going to work. I mean, it's not stressful,
Right.
It's not stressful. It's not whatever. And you get your bills paid and if they want you one single solitary moment longer than your hour than what you're on the schedule for, then they're paying you double time or whatever the hell. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, if you're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it's and as soon as you strain your back or something, you're good. Yeah,
those jobs are definitely out there. I mean, not every job will be that. I mean, a lot of places will find every way they can to not pay you overtime and things like that. You
Oh
know,
yeah,
like,
but no, stuff like working for the federal government. I mean, they just don't have.
Oh yeah.
They
have no reason to bitch really. Well,
but it's like I wouldn't trade them. I don't.
No. I mean, So I mean, there's reason to bitch, but I mean, as far as like being able to look at someone else's job and be like, well, what I have to do for the dollars that I make, and versus what they have to do for the dollars I make, some like federal. I mean, there's some tough, jobs for the federal government,
right.
but they're not like crab boats,
No, I know. Well, nobody wakes up in the morning and says, what I'd really like to do today is sandblast the side of a ship. Yeah.
Well, maybe somebody does.
Maybe somebody.
Some like, podunk motherfucker that's just like, I like sandblasters. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he's like, because others just, woo!
That's true. That is true.
And those guys are out there. I mean, God bless them.
Yeah. They are. They are. They're out there with the sandblast.
But I mean, there's not enough of them to do all the sandblasting or, equivalent jobs.
No.
And there's got to be a lot of people that are, that have to settle for those jobs that, either, honestly probably could do something better or, just,
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, but they don't want to challenge themselves or have to look or, people do end up doing, for the most part, I think, what's in front of them. Like just kind of, I mean, I did almost, in my life, I've delivered pizzas, I've sold cars, and now I've worked at a bank, and that's pretty much the whole thing that I've done. I mean, that's the breadth and width of my experience. If I, and I never, I mean, I considered working at a bank, but I didn't know anything about it. And then I had a friend who said, hey, would you be interested in? And I said, yeah, I'll give that a try. And 3 years later or whatever, I'm a bank person or whatever. But I mean, it's not, I didn't seek it out. Like, I was like, God, you know what I'd really like to do?
Right.
Work in a cheesy retail environment. And
no, and my day job is definitely not something I sought out to do either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just.
So, and that's when I was younger and more idealistic. I mean, and maybe this is just a defeatism here, but when I was younger, I resented the idea that I would work at a job I wasn't passionate about. Like, why would I do that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I still have that. I'm like,
I know,
every day. Like, I mean, I go to work and I do it and I get the check, but every day I've got to think about it that way. I've got to think about, like, man, okay, I'm going to get a paycheck in a couple weeks. It's going to be okay. It's only like, I only work 4 days a week. I can't fucking,
right.
This isn't fucking Nazi Germany. I'm not. Like,
I know.
And I'm like, but I have to tell myself that. But that's just me. Like, I've got that, like, I went fucking crazy, a few weeks ago, and I had a fucking meltdown, and I just started packing up the fucking house. I was ready to move out of here, and just
really,
I was like, I was screaming and yelling and shit. Like, it was bad, and it was just because for the past few years, I haven't been doing anything that I want to do. Mm-hmm. I've been sitting in this fucking job that I do. I work from home,
right?
Doing network shit for computers. In case anybody cares, I'm not going to talk about it much on the podcast, but
right.
Because it's boring as fuck. I've been sitting in a house, working from home in my house, getting off work, being in my house, making barely enough money to pay for this house, honestly, because it's fucking expensive. Mm. The electricity is retarded and, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And, and I'm not doing anything. I was in a band for a while, and it was somebody else's band that wrote all the music, and I tried to contribute, and it ends up being a lot of drama. Yep. Like any band really ends up being.
Oh, yeah. And
it's just. Yeah. And I just fucking lost it. And I was like, hey, I'm not doing anything I want. And a lot of people, like those people from Bremerton that are willing to settle. Like, they're more willing to settle for something than be like, what the fuck are you got bitching about? You're doing this easy cake-ass job for, okay money. And
yeah,
what's your problem? And I'm like, my fucking problem is none of the energy I have in me is being expressed in any way.
Right.
And I don't know how else to explain it. Like, that drive to want to do something more than what. Then
I know what you mean.
Like, I started doing stand-up comedy recently. I totally suck. I'm an open micer, but it's awesome because it's a super challenge. It's like, there's all that. You're a musician.
Yeah.
And you know what it's like to be in a band.
Yep.
And you know what it's like to just beat your fucking head against that wall.
Yeah.
Trying to make it work. Trying to find people that can work together to make it work.
Yep.
Trying to, have that many egos in a room.
Yes.
Contain themselves for long enough to pull some songs together and practice them and get good enough at it to play a show. that they can all, you know, schedule to do, you know, like and then all getting all the equipment there, you know, making sure everybody's sober enough to fucking,
oh yeah,
you know, like, and I started out doing music because I was good at it when I was a kid, and I'm not trying to like brag.
No, yeah.
But I was good at it, and I always felt like, and people always tell me that, and ever since I was a kid, like, oh man, you're good at that. You should keep doing that when you grow up. And I'm like, yeah, I should keep doing that when I grow up, huh?
Yeah.
But as a kid, I never really listened to music. You know, I mean, I did because I didn't have enough like experience to have songs like, you know, trigger memories for me, and you know, I mean, it's, you know, I wasn't like, this is my favorite song, other than like something off the like Bugs Bunny record that I had or whatever, and like, and you know, but then I grew up like, you know, thinking that I wanted to be a rock star. You know, I'm like, I'm going to be a rock star in a fucking rock band. I'm going to be like on the fucking guitar. I'm going to get bitches. You know, I'm going to get paid.
Yep.
And then I was in a band who shall remain nameless, and you know, we did okay locally.
Yep.
You know, you were there, and
I know what you're talking about.
You know, and it seemed like it was almost destiny at that point. You know, I was just like, holy shit, it's happening.
Right.
And I'm so glad it didn't, you know, like, because at this point I've realized, like, I really enjoy music. I really like playing it. But the music industry fucking sucks balls. And the actual work involved in, like, putting a band together, like, the kind of shit that I would want to do is just, like, so tedious and so ungratifying. You hate your own songs by the time you end up actually playing them on stage.
Oh, right.
You know, like, you hate the people that you work with eventually, at least sometimes, you know, it's just having to be on the road to actually make it work. You've got to tour, and you've got to be gone, like, you know, and it's just, and none of that is compatible with Andrew. You know what I mean? Like, any of that, like, and that's the reality of it. I was like,
oh shit,
I can't, you know, I've never been able to do that with anything in my life. You know, I mean, I've got a lot of dedication, but I don't have enough to be able to, like, I mean, you've got to be really lucky.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I mean, you know, yeah.
And which is true of everything, but it's like you've got to be really lucky to, like, you've either got to have, like, a college education in music so you can play, sight read, and play what someone else wants you to so they can pay you to do that.
Right.
Or you've just got to be super lucky and meet the right people at the right time.
Oh, yeah. Now, you just got to win the dice roll. I mean, there's no reason that some people are rich and famous at musicians and others aren't, you know. I mean, there's a couple like prodigies and really
right. If you're super tenacious, I mean, there's just machines out there like fucking
like Paul McCartney or something is like he was destined for.
Oh yeah,
like that was.
But he would never have had it any other way. Him or like someone like Eric Clapton, you know.
Right.
Yeah. So just real hard fucking worker. It was always going to do something good no matter what they did, you know. But
right. No, but for the most part, I mean, it's there's not much that separates, you know, the top 40 band and a million other local derivations of that band. You know what I mean? It's just that they were in the right place, right time. And the other thing is that the more kind of corporate dick sucking you are, the better you get on in that environment too. I mean, the more, you know, I mean, you and I both know those mid, you know, we both played with bands or individuals that have gone on to be pros. You know what I mean? And in the, you know, very medium, you know, maybe D-list celebrity kind of way or whatever.
Sure.
But they were the most organized and the most, you know, they weren't even the most popular or anything. They were just the most like
right.
driven and just, you know, check this off the to-do
They had the
list.
most opportunities. They had the most combined with, you know, the most, you know, time to do it and willingness and
right
determination and all that. Yeah.
So it's
and that's where it got them, was like halfway up the chain, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's like I don't want to. Well, one of the groups that we were, you know, that we played with when I was really young went on to be a kind of a rockabilly cover band that makes a living in Nashville, as I understand it now, and you know, they're happy, and I think that's great and everything. But it's like I never wanted to be kind of a museum act. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
that wouldn't have appealed to me to be like,
or to be like in a cover band,
right? No,
yeah, no, and I mean, there's guys and there's guys that are perfectly happy doing that, and I see why. Like, you know, the local band. They play down at the Swiss.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about. The cover band.
Yeah, I do. They're famous.
Yeah. The little 3-letter name. You know the one I'm talking about. Yeah. They have. Like I've met them a couple times, and they're pretty cool guys.
I'm sure.
You know what I mean?
Good musicians,
and you know what they fucking do is they put on on their website they have fans write and vote for the songs that they want them to play and put on their set list. You know what I mean?
Yep, sure.
So they said, all right, well, this is what the people want to hear. This is what we're going to learn to play.
We're going to do right.
They're literally just they're doing what like every act that gets produced by like a major studio does.
Right.
You know, through numbers and stuff, they figure out what demographic wants this, and they craft this like act to fit that. And then these guys that just want to feed their kids, you know, and they're just like, so what do you guys want to hear? And they're
probably a fun way to do it.
Loaded, dude. They're loaded.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
they make fucking bank.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, you're running your band the same way you would run a carpet cleaning business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, exactly. You're trying to get the most Facebook likes. You're trying to, deliver the most efficient service. You know, like, I don't know. I had a lot of experience in these last couple of years with self-employed people, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, just kind of that starting tailor-made, ready to, you know, made to order service that we provide that is the most suitable to the largest demographic group we can service, and that kind of thing. I mean, it's where I was always down to rock.
Yeah. I was always. If you showed me that band, you know, that cover band when I was 16, 17,
they were around, weren't they?
Maybe, I don't know. I didn't.
Different members.
Yeah,
I think they were. Though. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't old enough to get into a bar legally.
Nope.
But I mean, oh god, dude, I would have just hated the fuck out of them. And I not that I like them really now, but it's
no. But
as people, I respect what they are, you know, at least at this point. But I would have been like, exactly, indignant about it. I would have been like,
how dare they?
They are beneath me.
Abomination.
Me and my punk rock guitar skills. I stomp on them. Yeah. You know, and
but you know,
I mean, I would never be happy doing that. Is the point? I would never be happy being the band that was like, all right, what do you guys want to hear? All right, you want to hear Three Doors Down? We're going to put that on our set list. You know, like
no, that's because you know damn well they play shit they hate too. Like, you know damn well, because
oh god, they would have to. I mean,
have to
at least, you would,
because nobody likes every top 40 song or whatever that that comes on. But man, just having to like, ugh.
No, but you know what? I respect it because they found a way to do it. They're playing music, and it may not be all music they like, but they're feeding their kids doing it, which is probably all they ever really wanted. You know, like.
Well, it's not all they want. Of course, they wanted to be rock stars.
Of course, they wanted to be rock stars, but you know I'm sure once they had kids, because I think they all do for the most part. You know, like. I'm sure they don't want to be touring in a rock band, you know, like all the time necessarily.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of the guys they are.
Although it goes back to my thing about the 18-year-old girl.
Yeah. I mean, there's I mean, they could secretly want, you know, out of all that.
Right. They want
because so many men do. But
yeah. And then, yeah.
But I mean, it's at least self-sustaining. You still do like eBay?
No, but I mean, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
But how much money would you say you've made like at peak efficiency?
Oh man, I did. I used to know this. I think I did about $18,000 a year for a couple of years.
How many hours of work would you say like you would have put in on average per month?
Maybe in the neighborhood of 10 hours a week.
10 hours a week?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So like 40 hours a month.
Yeah.
For $18,000.
Yeah.
That's not too bad.
No, it was pretty awesome, man. I mean, it was. I mean, it was. I got PayPal stopped me for breaking their rules, but I. And in a sense, it was the best thing that happened to me because, I wouldn't want to have crawled along at that pace. But
yeah, now you dealt in some products that were pretty cool, in my opinion. You want to talk about some of those a little bit?
Sure. Well, I sold Third Reich coins.
Yeah. Nazi gold, some might say.
Yeah, exactly. and they were real. What I sold what was real, and in the And I just stumbled upon, everyone says, how'd you get into that? And I don't have no idea what the answer is, other than I set up an eBay account and I just started doing what everybody does with an eBay account, is just looking for stuff, and one thing leads to another,
Yeah.
And I stumbled across this and I said, oh, heck, I'll buy this coin, see what, or I'll bid on this coin, because you get like the proverbial money burning a hole in your pocket when you get an eBay account, And I'm like, let's see, what do I want? And I just bid on it, and I won one. And then I was like, okay, let me go online now to see how much I overpaid for this thing. Because in the car business, I knew something of, buying and selling and that kind of thing.
Sure.
So I looked and I found, a website where this guy would sell in bulk these coins that I just bought. And one of the tricks of the trade I had was that, you buy in bulk, and then you sell retail, buy wholesale, sell retail,
Mm-hmm.
But one of the tricks was that I would kind of manipulate the market in that there was however many people doing it. I want to say there was in the neighborhood of 10 people consistently doing what I was doing on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just go bid on all their auctions to make sure that, like, if they started, there was these coins that I bought for $4.
Sure.
And that was the kind of the going rate that I
Okay.
could buy them for. And then everybody would start their bidding at 99 cents or a penny. And I would just go every day and bid every coin that was for the $4 coin that was for sale. I'd bid it up to $4 because if I won, I was buying merchandise for the going rate,
Right.
And the overwhelming majority of the time I would lose, but at least nobody would be buying it for less than what I could buy it wholesale for.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I was manipulating the market in that sense. And the other thing I was doing was, you can list for auction and you can list for buy now on eBay, and I was just picking random prices out of the air, $28.95 or whatever.
Or to put buy it now auctions up. Yeah.
And so people would use their, I learned that, you sell against your own inventory, where you say, where you sell against your own inventory. So you say, you get folks who are saying, well, this guy's, you can buy it now for $28.95, but if I, so therefore I ought to be safe bidding it to $15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Which ended up being, there was a number of times where I sold this $4 coin for $100. That happened. That would happen every so often, and then just the majority of the time, my margin would be, I don't remember now, but it was good. And then there was different stuff I would sell, and then I would put a couple things together in a group, and just.
Now, do you get any like sort of like flack? I don't for selling that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. And how often does that happen?
Well, when I was doing it,
Yeah.
Once or twice a month, you'd get like flagged, and then because the eBay rules allow for it, you know what I mean? You can't sell, of course they have rules that say you can't sell stuff that promotes hatred, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But then there were these bylines, that says, it is acceptable to sell, merchant, historical memorabilia with the swastika if, in the case of coins or stamps or something like that. So I would get flagged, and I had like the part of the rules bookmarked in my browser, and I would just send it to whatever, person was monitoring that particular day.
But did you ever get any like angry emails, like from people?
No. And you know what else, man, is I sold these things all over the world. Like you probably couldn't name a country other than a lot of countries in Africa that just don't have the internet. But there was almost no country I didn't sell to. I sold a ton to Israel. I sold, Malta, East Europe, West Europe, tons in Australia. Ironically, my source was Australia. The guy that I buy in bulk from was someone who worked out of Australia. And I would sell them to Australia. And I thought it was funny that these things were actually coming from Australia, then being retail sold back to Australia.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah. But they were, I was, they were just little kind of curiosity things. And I think the main market was people that were just curious about something that's so incredibly taboo. To hold this in your hand.
Yeah, I have that thing you can say. It's like, you guys want to see my Nazi gold?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
here it is. Yeah.
And that was I think that was the basically thrill seekers, because people who knew coins wouldn't. There's no reason for them to buy what I was selling for the prices I was selling it for.
Sure.
But then it was a lot of like repeat customers where they bought one, they got it, they liked it, and then they decided they kind of wanted the set or whatever. And then they would email me. I also got a lot of offers to buy stuff. Like, people would email me and say, hey, you want to buy this, that, or the other thing. And so I've got like a little collection of
Nazi stuff.
Yeah. I got,
do you have any I
got an armband.
Armbands.
One or two armbands.
Creepy.
I got some medals.
Yeah.
The medals are pretty badass. I got some, there's something called I don't know the German word, but it's called a mother cross. That was that was given out to, in varying degrees, was given out to German mothers for having German babies. And I got a couple of those that are kind of, they're crazy looking. I got like these, they're gold with like a blue ribbon and like a.
Wow, what a crazy thing to get a medal for.
Well, I've watched documentaries, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, but that was a big part of, for one thing, it was a big thing in the day. It wasn't just Nazi Germany doing it, like propaganda and uniforms and medals and stuff.
Right.
But they did kind of excel in the department of, everybody got a uniform, everybody had a rank of some kind or another. There was a lot of, hey, you're on the inner party, so we're going to let you know this stuff and that kind of thing. Where really anybody on the inner party was anybody who showed any interest and wanted to be in the inner party, So, but there was a lot of that kind of propaganda where it's like, hey, we're going to let you in on the secret and you're part of the elite, and people feel better, people feel important, it makes them more loyal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense. I mean, the whole Nazi movement was a big cultural drive for the most part.
Absolutely. I mean, they were, at the time the brown shirts showed up, they were one of a gazillion political parties.
Right.
And then they ended up the only one. There was no alternative in Nazi Germany at the time.
God.
Which is why, technically, like the guy who was, the Polish Pope that we had for a short time was technically a Nazi member of some Nazi party at some, Nazi
right.
or whatever. Because there was no option B for people.
Yeah.
My theory, my totally, again, unqualified, unholy theory about that stuff, and I don't pretend to know what I'm talking about, but I think Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party were, one or two generations too late in the historical scope of like conquerors, right? Like Alexander the Great, Napoleon Bonaparte. I mean, it used to be like prior to the First World War or whatever, it was that trying to conquer the world was a kind of a normal thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And an emperor trying to consolidate power and conquering the world wasn't necessarily a bad thing in the eyes of society, like the zeitgeist. And so Adolf Hitler just did it like one generation too late, where it was like, what the fuck is he doing? He's trying to conquer the world. Where prior to that, it was the normal thing.
Right. Prior to that, look at Spain.
Yeah.
Like, they've wiped out entire populations of people.
Absolutely.
And never like got any like repercussions for it either,
Right. Well, I mean, we don't, I mean, obviously, and you could make human rights cases and everything else, but I mean, we don't think of Napoleon and Hitler as belonging to the same category. You know what I mean? Like, no,
what Hitler did, Hitler did a very similar kind of thing, but it wasn't at least from how we can view it, through history's lens or whatever. I mean, it was a little more like sadistic. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
It just, there's some things done that were just done seem purely out of like, just unnecessary sort of
sadism.
Yeah.
Although, and of course, you're absolutely right. There's also, I don't know. There's some of the stuff I'm going to sound like an insane person, but some of the stuff you learn about in school, it turns out there's not any historical basis or reality for, like the tattoo, the Jewish lampshade made out of Jewish skin or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't mean
right, and that's not to diminish any
not at
other
all
things, because like a ton more fucked up shit than that did really happen.
It's just, and
it's But stories like that, I mean, it's hard not to believe something like that because it could
Well, it could have happened, but then
I mean, not that it did, but something like it could. I mean, it was definitely possible.
Right. I think the we hold it's not that Hitler is not evil or not terrible, but we just don't. Somehow he was kind of frozen in time as the apex of evil dictators, where Joseph Stalin or Pol Pot or a great many other people who committed just completely horrible, disgusting atrocities just don't really get the press. I mean, it's the reason why you can sell Nazi coins for a lot of money is because it occupies this space. I mean, I'm a comic book fan, right? And to this day, in 2014, they'll roll out a villain who is tied to the Nazi Party, and like neo-Nazis are like villains in comic books. Where militant Islamists aren't.
Yeah, and part of the reason might be is because he's pretty much the only white guy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That level of, dictator. I mean, we had, like you said, Napoleon, but I mean, he was a conqueror, but he wasn't rounding up specific
ethnic groups. I don't know. You probably not. I don't know. I mean, the Jews were the pogroms or whatever they were called. I mean, Jews were routinely rounded up and exiled and that kind of thing in Europe. 500 years.
Right.
Right. I mean, they lived in ghettos and they were, completely segregated and that kind of thing. I mean, you read Shakespeare's what's the Merchant of Venice? You know what I mean? It's just about this horrible Jew who was a bastard, and in the end, it's kind of like the heroic nobility said.
Yeah, there's definitely an undercurrent like throughout history,
right?
For whatever reason, and people debate why that is for whatever reason, but with the Nazis specifically, it was more of a it was a campaign. You know what I mean? It took it to the next level. I mean, they were doing weird shit with like art exhibitions, where they would have all the like Jewish art on display for a night, and then they would burn it all, and then they certainly and they scapegoated the culture for sure. Like and it was like an active thing. Like the second they got into power, they'd get all the Jewish doctors and like kicked them out of the hospitals and started putting all these weird laws that like legalized compulsory sterilization for deformed and Jewish people and like
and they outlawed like the Jewish ritual sacrifice of animals and stuff.
And it was like right away. That was. I mean, whereas before, people that were conquerors that would come and they'd be like, "We want this land because it's got some shit on it that we want."
Right. Well, and there was genocide and that kind of thing that was common practice too.
Yeah, but it wasn't like these people are. I mean, and maybe it was in some cases, but I mean, it seemed to me, at least from the medium amount of history that I've read, I guess it seems to be like a lot more of an air of they're being killed because they're on our land,
right?
And we want that land, and we want those people gone, whoever they are, not because they are a scourge on society that are going to bring down. They're going to infect the rest of the pure population with their infected genes and fucking No, there was a well, history is so dark and evil and terrible too. I mean, I was on the phone with a delightful young lady who's, I guess, one of my sister-in-laws, and she is a good, devout Christian gal who, and she was asking me about my conception of God because I'm a monotheist, and but not a Christian, and she was asking me kind of how that worked, and I told her what I told her, and I says, I like the I like some parts of Christianity. It's so cliche to say, but I like some parts of Christianity. But there's just so much that's irreconcilable. Like I mean, the Old Testament is full of like ethnic massacres. Genocide and rules for when you get to keep your slave and how you get to keep their wife when they leave. And
that was another one. It's like I heard it's not my phrase. I heard a scholar say, an intellectual on the topic say, and I hate smug atheists like YouTube people or whatever. But this guy was talking about how, he says it's one of the moral questions that's very easy to get right, and Christianity gets it wrong, and that's slavery. Like you don't have to be. It doesn't have to be a matter of divine wisdom. I mean, it's like the normal person can evaluate the practice of slavery, the institution of slavery, and find it to be wrong and inhumane. And yet the Bible didn't seem to be capable of doing that.
Right. And then the argument, for it is, is like, well, that's the Old Testament, and you're not supposed to really take it literally because it was written in a time when that kind of thing was acceptable, and you've got to look at it through the lens of the kind of person that would have lived there that day, and then apply that kind of logic to the life that you would live today in our society. And
right.
But I mean, if you have to go that far to try and justify what this shit says, I mean, you're not reading what this shit says. You're just
no.
You might as well be reading anything,
exactly,
because you've twisted it so many times that you're.
Well, and I'm a moral. Me, like my kind of foundation, my spiritual belief or whatever is based in moral absolutism. Like I think that that's kind of my evidence. Although it's not conclusive, but for me, it's my evidence that I think there is a God is because I think that there are universal laws of that aren't just laws of physics, but are moral, ethical laws. I believe that some things aren't relative, some things are absolute.
Yeah,
and to me, it doesn't make sense that in this time period, this moral absolute wasn't in play, but in this time period, it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell because you can't really know for sure unless you had lived two lives and you could grow up and back then live a life and then grow up again now and then live, knowing what you knew when, back then so you could compare. Really, that's the only way you could ever really know. But yeah. I mean, that's the fucking question of the century, isn't it? Or of the ages, really.
I mean, I don't. Well, I mean, I think that. In my opinion or whatever, I think rape is wrong. I mean, to use an obvious example, but I think rape is wrong, and I don't think that there's a circumstance in which rape is right. I don't believe that if culturally, what I mean, it was a rite of passage or XYZ or whatever. I think that rape is wrong universally. Rape's wrong, even if everyone in the world thinks rape is right, it's still wrong.
But would you grow up thinking it was wrong if you grew up in a world where everyone thought it was right?
Well, maybe or maybe not, but it doesn't matter. Human beings' perception of right and wrong isn't as important as actual right and wrong. That's my case.
And
things are right or wrong without perception.
What I think the sticker is where it's causing suffering in somebody else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you're doing something that causes suffering in somebody else, it's never going to be right.
You're right.
I mean, and pretty much everybody agrees with that for the most part. I mean, and there's religions out there that deviate and try to explain it, in other ways. But even those are, the basic kind of thing is, don't do anything that upset or that harms somebody else.
Right.
And that's what it mostly boils down to.
But why? But the thing. But my beef with the kind of militant atheists that you see on YouTube, you know what I mean, is they'll say that, you know what I mean, but they can't reconcile why that's true, because if we are just evolving organisms and there is no, ultimate justice or real. Moral absolutes in the universe, then why would it be true that causing suffering is bad or wrong?
Well, because I think the very nature of suffering, is tied with being, with our definition of bad. Because if nobody suffered, would there really be anything bad? You know what I mean? Because if you killed somebody and they were fine with it, and everybody else was fine with it too, and you were fine with it,
yeah.
Would it be bad? I mean, they were fine with it.
Well, it depends on how you mean fine with it, but
it's suffering. It didn't cause them to suffer. They were, they were ecstatic about everything. If everybody was always happy about everything all the time,
right?
You know what I mean? There wouldn't really be anything bad because you could never do anything that would cause anybody suffering.
Sure.
So in that respect, that our idea of things being bad is irrecoverably tied to suffering, causing people suffering, or yourself, depending on how you want to look at it. But yeah, and I mean, I think that's because that we are beings that know how to suffer and know what it's like to suffer and what and we have a pretty good idea of what might cause somebody else to suffer too, based on that. Mm-hmm. That's where our morality comes from.
Right.
I mean, at least in my opinion. I mean, it's definitely a sort of existential question for sure.
It is, yeah, it is. I mean, you can construct these hypotheticals or whatever that you can't answer unless there is an absolute truth in the world, right? Like I heard I don't know if it was true or just a story, but the guy escapes death row and he's running away on some frozen landscape, and the corrections officer or whomever the jailer is chasing him, and the jailer falls through a hole in the ice and is just kind of hanging on to the cliff or whatever, hanging on to for life, and the inmate turns around and helps him up, what is why would he do that, or was he doing the right thing when he did that? Mm-hmm. And I mean, he saved the guy's life, and as a result, was apprehended and sent back to death row and executed. Was there justice being served there, even though he wasn't doing what was evolutionary, biologically correct for him? Right. What I mean? He wasn't preserving himself.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, there's, the human mind is a powerful thing, Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got all sorts of different drives that interact with each other in all sorts of weird and often, unpredictable ways. And I think that, what we call, I mean, I don't know if we want to call love or compassion or whatever, doing something bad to somebody or watching somebody suffer makes you suffer too.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. It can. Yeah, it can.
Yeah. And especially if it's something that you did to them, mm-hmm. And then that really sucks.
Right.
When you did something to someone that if someone did to you, you would have felt, and you would have felt like they were just a fucking asshole. I mean, you feel like that fucking asshole when that happens. You know what I mean? And so when you see and you catch somebody on the wrong day and they see something going down where somebody's they see a stranger going through something that maybe they've seen somebody else, like a loved one, go through before, and they're like, oh, fuck no. And they just, without even thinking, get right in the middle of it or whatever, without thinking of the harm that they're going to do to themselves. Right,
exactly. Well, then there's there's plenty of sadists or people with the, mental condition that they enjoy the suffering of others, they think it's good and they want it and they promote it, whatever. And, my argument is that it isn't just because it's my argument is that it isn't right for them, even though if they're doing what their gut tells them to do and they're doing what brings them, pleasure, whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I think the argument,
sure, and I think those people in particular, I don't think they're necessarily think they're doing the right thing,
but they could. I mean,
they could, I guess, but I mean, in general, I don't think they do. Well, maybe they do.
I mean, the nature of the
if you're going to believe the movie Seven,
yeah,
if that guy really existed, then yeah, he does, because but
well, and I think there's a lot less intellectual versions of that where they're
right.
But I mean, that's my point, is that there are morality doesn't just exist between our ears. It's a force in the world that's real, whether or not we adhere to it or obey it. It's a real thing. It's a real force. That's kind of my belief.
Yeah, I think that maybe I don't think it just exists between our ears, but I think maybe it stems from what does collectively exist between everyone's ears. That's
why I disagree. That's exactly what I disagree with, because if well,
okay, so if assuming, because like I said, I have a hard time thinking of what could be bad if nobody suffered over anything. If everybody was happy about anything that happened to them in their life.
Right.
I have a hard time thinking of something that define as being bad in that context.
Yeah, well,
that said, I mean, we're born a certain way. Our instincts are, develop a certain way to make sure that we do, whatever they do that so far has got us to live this far as a species, got us to make it this long as a species.
Right.
And, in doing that, we've got some sort of, traits that have evolved that, because I mean, if you look at other mammals, say, like if you compare us to dogs, like dogs rape.
Oh, absolutely.
That's all they do, right? I mean, there is no non-rape in the dog world, right?
Yeah,
right.
No, I believe you completely.
And they,
none of us would argue that was wrong either,
right? And the other thing is, and part of the reason because of that is because they can't communicate with each other like we can,
Sure, but they know.
All they know is that their dick feels weird and they want to shove it in that thing over there, and
right. But they also know that thing doesn't want their dick shoved in it.
Maybe.
In some cases, sure.
Yeah, maybe if they're like turning around and like, then they, they're like, get it down, and then, but oftentimes it's just the female of the situation is just like,
yeah.
And if they didn't, if they're,
I think too that females in a lot of species of animals, like the female fights them off, and therefore it's only the strong,
right,
creature that's able to impregnate the female,
right. And so, I mean, but if dogs grew up in a dog society where they could talk and they could, exchange specific ideas with each other and like ask questions and confirm and things like that, like we can,
right?
Would their brains evolve into some things with a morality? Would they start thinking like, oh, would they feel bad? Would they have compassion for other dogs? Because at the point they can't really,
right?
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's a catch-22 because, of course, we don't know what dogs' consciousnesses really are.
Yeah, and and I'm with you. I mean, as far as the getting annoyed by some of the atheist videos you'll see on YouTube, or but a lot of those people, what they're just reacting. They're still bitter that they were lied about Santa Claus.
Exactly.
They're like,
exactly. Yeah.
Mommy told me that Santa Claus was real, and it wasn't. And here's why it wasn't real. And
right.
Of course, fucking Santa Claus isn't real. That's not hardly the point,
Well, yeah, yeah, and also like the blaming the, I think, of course, I'm not an expert. I think it's naive. The folks who blame religions for the world's wars. You know what I mean? I think that's really naive. It's like I don't think, in the overwhelming majority of times, I don't think religion is responsible for wars. I think religion is.
It's not responsible, but it's definitely like.
It's a propaganda tool that you use.
It's definitely a driving factor in some of them.
Yeah, well, but I mean, they're battles for resources, battles for power.
You're right.
And then you incorporate the religion. You say, okay, we need. We're going to go to war with the Middle East, so all you religious people go out there and rally our cause. You know what I mean? Or go basically prepare our troops, and it's. In that respect, it's hardly different. I mean, it's no different than like nationalist propaganda, where we say, "Okay, listen, we're doing this for freedom and justice." And
right. I mean, the war always gets started by people that are able to start a war. I mean, you have to have resources at your disposal to be able to start a whole war.
Right. Right.
And in a religion, well, I mean,
there
were times when religions did, and like the Catholic Church being a notable example. But I mean, but these days it's not. You've got to have resources, and it's not just like religious beliefs, And in some areas of the world, in small pockets of the world, it's true, like in places like Iraq, where they've got so many different factions of the same religion, and
right.
They're just fucking crazy desert tribes because they're out living in the desert with no water and not getting laid and shit,
Right,
right. It's
And
joke, obviously, but
in some places, like stoning people and feeling completely justified in doing so too. You know what I mean? Like it's an example of I say it's wrong to stone people regardless of the prevailing attitudes of a region or whatever. That's my kick. And to me, that's kind of.
I would always be uncomfortable with it for sure.
Right. You're right. Yeah.
If I'm watching somebody get stoned, it's always going to be like, ooh. Yeah. I mean, I never have. I hope I never do. But
no, I know. Oh my God, no.
Especially like right there. That would just be like it was scarring. I wouldn't be able to stop thinking about it for weeks.
No, I know shit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
What else, man?
Well, fuck, we've covered the gamut of things, haven't we? Now you mentioned something on your... we've only got a little bit here. It's almost 2 hours so far already.
Well, you can cut and clip this too if you want to.
Oh no, this is pretty good. All solid. Okay. I'm going to put it up raw. That's how I do. Only raw, unfiltered. No. Yeah, and no Jimmy hat. Wait, yes, there's a Jimmy, not a Jimmy hat. Raw, no penis. That's what I meant. No. So you mentioned something on the. You were talking to Didi about marijuana.
Yep.
Marijuana, and you mentioned something about sort of your opinion on the legalization, sort of. Or I mean, your opinion. You didn't really have an opinion. You didn't care, is what you.
I really don't remember how I voted on that. Actually, I was thinking about that. Honestly, goodness, I don't remember. I don't remember how I voted. I think I voted against legalization, but I don't remember.
Yeah. So, but you mentioned some of your ideas and why you thought, on the subject of marijuana in general.
Yeah.
Being not that favorable, obviously.
Yeah, I don't think. Right. No, I don't think.
I mean, if I recall right, I think you went so far as to say you don't think that somebody selling marijuana is doing anything good for society.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think that that's a good way to earn a living or anything like that. I don't. I think that. Yeah, I think weed is more bad than it is good. I don't, you know what I mean? I don't think it's horrible or anything.
What makes you say that though?
It's a good question. I don't think that. Like, I don't think not being sober is a good thing by and large. I'm not like militant about it or anything like that. I don't want. I think it's good to feel the emotions that you feel naturally, or
sure,
experience life the way that.
Something I think you might be trying to reach that you said before was that you said that you think it's bad, and that the argument against it, or the argument for it, is that it's not as bad as alcohol. Or
I hate that argument, because it's the argument that anytime you argue that other things are worse, therefore this thing is okay, is a slippery slope. I think
it can be. I think it depends on what you're comparing it to. Because if you're comparing it, it's not as bad for you as vitamin D. You're comparing something that's good for you.
Right.
Well, that's necessary for your existence.
Well, sure, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm talking. If you talk about
right. No, you're talking about other. We're talking about other.
Right.
Well,
like weed is certainly. I feel comfortable saying that weed is less bad than methamphetamine.
Yeah.
I feel real good about that. But I will even admit that weed is less of a danger hazard than alcohol. I don't know for sure that it is, but
so like when you drink alcohol, when you drink booze, your body treats it like a toxin. It starts releasing starts releasing enzymes to break it down, which then so your liver can break it down with more antioxidants. But then in the meantime, it can't do that fast enough. So all the stuff that it gets initially broken down to, and alcohol, go in your brain and start like slowing down all these processes and just killing brain cells and shit like that. It's bad, and that's what happens when you get drunk. Because
yes.
But when you get high on weed, your body's not treating cannabinoids like a toxin. It's you're stimulating receptors in your brain that are specifically for those chemicals. They're not specifically made for weed necessarily, like for cannabis, because you generate endocannabinoids in your body naturally. All animals do, but
sure.
But when you
believe you, I have no idea.
Yeah. I feel pretty confident saying this.
Right? No, I'm sure you're right.
And but when you get high on cannabis, your body's not treating it like a toxin, because it's not. The LD50, which for those of you who don't know, the lethal dose it's the amount of something you would have to take to have a 50% chance of dying. That's the LD50 of any kind of substance.
Okay.
An LD50 of cannabis is something like 1,500 pounds of flower in 15 minutes is what you would have to take.
Gotcha.
To have a toxic dose of cannabinoids, and that's not because it's treating it like, you're just overwhelming your body with so much of something that it's
right.
Whereas with like alcohol, or even with like something like less benign like salt, you eat like, I forget how much it is, like 3 pounds of salt an average person or something like that, and you're going to die.
No, I believe that. Well, I don't think...
Or 50 cups of coffee. I mean...
Right.
And that's doable.
Yeah.
I'm
sure I've come close.
And there's no way you could get close to a lethal dose of weed without passing out first. Like,
sure.
It's just not possible.
Well, no, yeah, I don't, my beef with ganja isn't its biological effects or you know what I mean? It isn't the health reasons, because I'm not I got no room to talk when it comes to health.
Yeah, neither do I, for sure.
So it isn't health. I mean, to me, that's a red herring. I mean, I think that.
Well, I mean, that is a big reason for a lot of people, though.
Is what that
it's bad for you, that it's killing your brain cells, and it's your. I mean, but go on.
Yeah,
I'm just,
I don't know if I don't know necessarily that I think that's true. I don't know if that is the rallying cry against weed, is that it kills brain cells,
or that it's bad for. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people would assume it does.
Yeah, I think it's bad. I think it's bad for you.
How do you think it's bad?
I think it makes life worse. I do. I think it makes in real general terms, I think it makes people's motivation lower. I think it makes I think they're more happy with less, or they're more happy with the status quo. I think they're just inebriated in the technical definition or whatever. I think their inhibitions are not inhibitions, but their ambitions maybe are lessened, and it's you know what I mean. It's just
I don't think it's true. I mean,
it might not be. I mean, and it has different effects on different people.
Well, I mean, a couple things. I mean, there's a couple different kinds of weed, right? I mean, you've got your indica and your sativas, and your indica is like, I mean, that's what you're talking about when you're talking about making people lazy. You're talking about something that may have more of a potential. If you're sitting on a couch and you smoke a joint of indica, you're going to continue to sit on that couch, or you're going to have a much higher chance of continuing to sit on that couch and play video games or whatever.
Right.
And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on, different people react to different things different ways, but that's the biggest that's most of the weed that you get around the country, because it grows the most weight per plant, per square foot. Indica, it's thicker. Whereas like a sativa, which is the much more cerebral, it picks you up. It makes you, think more. It makes you want to start watching documentaries and having those stoner conversations that are the other sort of stereotype of,
sure. Yeah. What if you could, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that was true. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so
There's
I mean,
two kinds of weeds. Do people buy one and not the other, or
yes,
do people?
Yes, very much.
I never heard that.
Yeah, and there's also, there's hybrids of the two, and they've also come up with strains that just have cannabinoids that deal with pain and don't get you high, for people that are like, deal with chronic pain. Mm-hmm. They call it high CBD stuff, and so yeah, I mean, there's that. So there's different kinds of weed, and most people that I know, most people that smoke weed prefer sativa in general, because it doesn't couch lock you, is what they call it, couch lock.
Couch lock, okay.
But I mean, and then even then indica, if you smoke a joint of indica, not sitting on a couch, if you just do it right before you go on a hike, you're going to go on that hike, and you're going to be on that fucking hike,
right?
And it doesn't make those people lazy. If you have a propensity to be lazy already, you're going to be lazy regardless. I mean, even if you didn't smoke that weed, you're probably going to sit on that couch regardless. You're not going to be like, well, I was going to waste the next year sitting here playing Minecraft all day.
Right.
But, I can't get any weed, so I think I'm going to go out and get a degree.
Right.
It's... I mean, it's like saying... I mean, it's like saying cars are bad because they make you waste all your money on putting stupid rims and exhaust and shit on your Honda Civic. You know what I mean?
I think that's a stretched analogy, though. You know, I
mean, or like buying stuff turns you into a hoarder. You know what I mean? Or like buying an iPad turns into a sniveling Apple fanboy that spends all his time arguing with Android fans on comments and stuff.
Do you think that's true, though? I mean,
not at all.
No, I know. I mean, but do you think that is what it's like? I mean, do you think that because?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
I mean, what
it is definitely what it's like because.
Well, but smoking weed makes it alters your it alters one's mood, right? I mean.
It can, yeah. I mean, it alters your mood. It'll alter some people it will, it sharpens your senses, narrows your focus, and so depending on the weed you get, it can make things taste better.
Sure.
If you have some nausea or if something going on with your stomach, it can help you eat. I mean, saying that it's bad or saying that that it makes is. I mean, there's thousands, there's been billions of people over thousands of years that would, disagree, I think.
Sure. I mean,
it's been used by medicine, various older cultures for,
yeah.
I mean, like mental medicine, for being introspective and, things like that. I mean, I think that, I think that the mind-altering drugs definitely have a place in being a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily being bad as... I think you can typecast not being sober or, quote unquote sober as being bad all the time necessarily, because I think if you take cases like Ibogaine, you know what Ibogaine is? Mm-mm. It's a psychedelic. It's like a hallucinogen. You get you high for quote unquote high for like 36 hours, but they have Ibogaine clinics in like all over the world, and not here because it's a Schedule I in America, but if you go to Canada or Mexico or something like that, you can go to an Ibogaine clinic to get off heroin. It has a 90% success rate in curing people's addiction to opiates.
Well, that's good,
but it gets you fucked up. It makes you see shit that isn't there, and part of the whole reason it does that is because it puts you into sort of introspective state where you're really analyzing why the fuck you're on heroin. Not only does it get you over the withdrawal symptoms, which can be, which can be pretty shitty for someone that's in the wrong mental state,
definitely
not to be able to take it or whatever, but But then it also helps them figure out why they were in that state, or what in their life got them there to begin with, because it, rips open holes in their mind to see things that weren't, that they maybe couldn't see before because they were in a place in their brain that didn't allow those pathways to get to a healthy place because they're too busy in other areas of their brain that aren't
right.
Yeah. And so I think there's good aspects to all of it, and
I think you can cite, you can find things that where a mood altering drug is better than not. I think you can find those examples, but I think in general, I do think it's a better in my in as much as my I have the authority to judge what is good and what is bad.
Yeah,
I think that the human being is better off sober than intoxicated.
Sure. Well, someone that smokes weed all day, every day, lots of people do and do it fine, but, it may not be the best way to live or whatever, but...
That's really that's kind of what I'm talking about. I think that in some people, I've seen people that were substantially less lazy than me, you know what I mean, that were just the up and at 'em, go-getter stoners,
Yeah.
Although I think if I was a stoner, I would be substantially more lazy than even I am now, But, so, sure, there could be exceptions, but I think in general, I'm
not sure that's an exception. I don't think that most people that smoke weed are just sit around and watch Netflix necessarily.
I think
most people that smoke weed do it not all day, every day, and do it responsibly and do it when they want and do it, when it's therapeutic or, for whatever reason they want it,
those, yeah,
in their
sure.
life for.
Sure. I think it's a lot better to use weed the way, the same way, someone uses alcohol. I think it's a lot better to do it, at selective times and places and not all the time. I think less is better than more.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't disagree with that, but it's just I think less is better than more because you think bad.
Zero is right, but
yeah, because I think zero is better than. And I accept that.
But there's all kinds of benefits, like for lots of people. Nobody would be taking it if there wasn't, like if all it did was fuck up people's lives and not do anything else for them.
Well, no, that's not true. If that was true, then you know what I mean. If that was true, then nobody would ever do stuff that's bad for you. You know what I mean? Like what?
Well, yeah.
But there's not all sorts of benefits to methamphetamines, but there's lots of people that do it a lot.
Oh, but there's certain benefits to it.
That could be, but they're not valid. They're not enough to justify.
I know people that have been prescribed it because they broke their neck and they had
prescribed methamphetamine.
Yeah. Oh. All kinds of crazy shit going on in the head, and they prescribed methamphetamine because that's for some reason. I don't know, like the pharmacology behind it or whatever, but for some reason that was what fixed them.
Yeah, that's such a bizarre one-off. I don't think.
I know it's a one-off, but but on the other hand, I've been prescribed Adderall for most of my life.
Yeah,
and it's an amphetamine.
Right.
It's definitely it's a relative, and it's definitely helped.
It's good.
Yeah, I wouldn't have gone through high school without it. I wouldn't have.
I believe in Western medicine. It's one of my problems, kind of with weed as a medicine. Is that I find it hard to believe that Western medicine doesn't have a better version of weed. Despite like Montel Williams saying he's got to smoke for his glaucoma or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I find it hard to believe. I heard a story. It's just hearsay, but I knew someone who was all stoked because they had this like super raw THC pill that they were going to, like a couple of these things that they had scored, and they were going to go out to the woods and get super high. And these things were designed, at least at some capacity, these were for the cancer patients to give them their appetite back. And these guys were stoners, but they went out, took the things, and were really hungry, and to their sense, they weren't high. Like they were really let down because they weren't high; they only were hungry.
Yeah,
and because the Western medicine, we can do shit like that and solve. You know what I mean? But that isn't interesting to the stoner. The stoner wants to get high, and so. My theory is that the stoner or the marijuana user likes doing marijuana and doesn't want to not do marijuana, and then the science and reasoning comes second. Like, then you build up your case for it because you know that you like it and want to do it.
I think certain people are like that, but I think especially lately, I think there's a lot of people that go the opposite way. I think there's a lot of people like, I know it might be a little too much. Little, too much praise for him or whatever, but Sanjay Gupta, recently came out. You know who that is?
Yeah, I think I know
one of the medical journalists for CNN or whatever came out, and he said he's been a strong opponent of marijuana for so many years, and he never read the science behind it because he just always assumed that drugs bad because that's how our culture raises people these days.
Right.
We live in a dare culture, and he. And then after he finally started reading the science and everything behind it, he's like, holy shit, there are actually medical benefits. I just took this drug being on a Schedule 1 with the DEA at face value. I thought our system was, essentially, perfect in that, not perfect, but,
sure.
That it
knew what it was talking about.
The cream rose to the top, and that this law was, based in science, and it wasn't at all, he said.
Right. No, that could be, see, here's the thing is like, where do I get my information on the subject, right? I'm not well read or anything like that. I'm not, but my experience doesn't come from health class in middle school. It comes from all the people that I knew and were friends with, that became stoners. You know what I mean? That's the bulk of my knowledge. You know what I mean? I had people that were one way and then, switched gears and became a different way. And,
yeah, but I'm sure that the pot was to blame for that necessarily, though. I think that they were on a path already, maybe. And
Maybe, but
maybe anything has a potential for abuse, and I mean, anything that can be used as as an escape can be abused.
Here, yeah. No, I know. Yeah, no, that's it.
I mean, people can ruin their lives just, reading books.
Reading books. No shit. Yeah,
yeah. Just like buying books and not ever going to look for a job and just sending yourself to the street because you can't get out of another world.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true.
But it's not the book's fault that the people are doing that. They're fucked up. They've got psychological issues beyond that. I'm reading this book right now by Dr. Carl Hart. He's a doctor of neuropsychology. Neuropsychopharmacology is his major study, I think, and he's like a co-author of one of the foremost books for drugs for colleges. The textbooks, and he's on the board for all this shit in New York or whatever. I don't want to butcher all his credentials or anything like that, but I'm reading this book where he talks about because that's what he does. He studies drugs and drug addiction and drugs' effects on the brain, and he was indoctrinated into this whole, like there's drug fiends, and a lot of it focuses on crack cocaine specifically, where he talks about when crack hit the scene, it was this big thing. It's worse than cocaine, because crack's a Schedule 1 drug, cocaine is a Schedule 2 drug, and they're like pharmacologically identical. They're just packaged differently, and it was just a marketing thing for to be able to sell less quantity, because back in the day you could only buy like big bricks of coke, and then somebody figured out a way to like package it smaller or whatever, and that's what crack ended up being. But it ended up being this big thing that he said he bought into. I went into these studies figuring that we were going to find crack fiends that would do anything they could for a hit of crack, because this drug that they took was making them do that. They were incapable of rational thought when it came to being able to take crack or not once they're on crack. And he did these studies where they would, every 15 minutes, they would give them a hit of crack. These crack addicts that were not looking for recovery or anything, they would give them a hit of crack. And then 15 minutes later, they would give them a choice. Do you want a hit of crack or do you want $5? Mm-hmm. You want a hit of crack, you don't want $5. And they would almost always take $5 instead of the crack. And the point would be that they were making rational decisions. They weren't... the crack wasn't taking over and forcing them, oh, more crack? Yes, give me that right now. They were thinking ahead, and of course, were
they thinking?
Well, they were thinking, that $5 is more valuable to me than another hit of crack. I need money. That's what they're thinking.
Okay,
and then they're thinking that it's not. They're capable of rational decision making at some level. They're not just like a fiend. Like that was the thing, crack fiend.
Yeah.
Once you get one hit, you have to have another one. You will do anything for another hit of that. And then it ended up being not true. No, it's not supported by science at all. It's a myth. This guy, and he proves it. All these people will take all these other forms of not stimulation, but
reward
exactly.
Yeah.
Reward for instead of the crack. And the argument might be that, well, they're just going to take the money and go buy crack afterwards.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is these people would save up the money that they would ask for the questions. They wouldn't take the crack. They'd take the money and they would say, hey, can you take this, write a check to this person. And then, you'd be showing like forward thinking and sort of a willingness for taking delayed gratification over.
Right. Well, that's I think I must misunderstand what you're talking about, because that sounds like lunacy to me.
Right. No, and that's what this doctor said too. Yeah. He's like, this totally blew me away. Like
I mean, I would. It sounds to me like your study group is polluted. You know what I mean? Or whatever. Because I know crack fiends, and they are crack fiends. Like they're not
right. No, but he's not denying that there aren't people that are addicted to for whatever. But what he's saying is that it's not the drug making them that way. Is that those people have psychological issues mixing with the crack, or
Well, I think that
that determine that behavior more than they take a drug and instantly they're a crack fiend. That doesn't happen, is what he's saying. It doesn't. The drug doesn't make them the crack fiend. The fiend exists in their head before, and then they start taking crack, and for some that's what they got exposed to, and so they ended up being a crack fiend. They could have easily been something else if they had been lived a different life,
right,
at some level, but but the fiend existed in them. It was a psychological.
There's definitely people that are more prone to addiction, and I believe that wholeheartedly. I don't know if that's groundbreaking though. I mean I really I don't know, man. I mean I know crack addicts, and former and in some cases I guess current, or I've known current crack addicts.
Sure.
And I don't know, man. That isn't what they would have picked on in that test. They wouldn't have picked $5. They would, I know. I remember distinctly a guy named Scott I knew who said,
"No, I understand. No, I'm not saying that there aren't addicts that wouldn't have." For whatever reason, but I mean, what I'm saying is the drug didn't make them that way. That most of the people that take crack aren't like that.
Most of the people that take crack aren't
addicts.
Aren't addicts.
Yes.
Of course they are.
No,
they're not.
No, I mean,
people who take crack aren't crack addicts.
No, I mean that's what this guy's book is all about. He's one of the premier pharma.
He sounds, yeah. No, he's highly decorated, and he's a genius.
And he's saying he's been sitting on this for a while because he doesn't, because of the backlash that this kind of thing is going to get, and because
why? I mean, it's kind of expensive, right? I mean, what do you like? Why are people? I mean, why are crack smokers smoking crack? Just for a good time?
Or to escape their lives, or and probably different reasons for different people. There's all kinds of things going on with.
No,
I mean, I've smoked crack before, and it didn't turn me into a fiend. I don't like coke at all in general. It just doesn't make me feel great. I mean, it did at first.
Yeah.
And I haven't done it in years now, but
sure, yeah.
But I mean, that you can count me in the, at some level in that group of cocaine users.
Sure, but I mean, but there you go, though. But I mean, you are someone who smoked it, didn't like it.
Oh, I liked it, but I didn't like. I didn't, it wasn't like, holy shit, give me more of that. It wasn't like. Sure. And after a while, I started to not. I mean, I only smoked it really the once, but then I did coke a bunch, and
right.
After a while, I just started not liking it. It was pretty much the same feeling. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, but you're not doing it now.
No, I haven't for years.
I know that, but my point is that you're not a crack user,
right? Well, I mean, at one point, I guess you could have called me a coke user. I mean,
right during the time you were using coke. I mean, and then.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think that would typify or typify or however it's pronounced. Your average cocaine user is somewhere in the realm of that, or even your average crack user is somewhere in the realm of like once in a while.
Oh, I'm so suspicious. You're talking about the moderate crack user.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the data, but it just seems really unlikely to me. The moderate crack user, and maybe that's because maybe I'm believing all the bullshit that.
Yeah. Well, check out his book, High Price, Dr. Carl Hart. Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm doing an audiobook because I can't read these days.
Yeah, no, I mean either.
But audiobooks are great.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're about out of time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
My pleasure.
Definitely have to do this again.
I'd love that. And you can come on the Geoff and Didi.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Podcast.
Yeah. So I'm going to pretend like I'm a real podcast and do my plugs,
please,
at the end, because I want to feel like I'm a real podcast, even though it's not.
It is too.
I'm going to be doing a few minutes of stand up at the Tacoma Comedy Club this Wednesday at the open mic.
Where is that?
It's on Market Street downtown.
Market Street, okay.
Yeah, it's like a block away from the YMCA on Market. It's great. A good time. A bunch of funny guys come down there and say new funny stuff all the time. So come down and check it out, guys. And that's about it for the Verbal Sex with AndrewX podcast this week.